it's Lindsay and welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing my 2024 recap. A bit late on the game, but that's okay. Better late than never. I've been watching everybody do these videos and I've been enjoying them so much, both on Authortube and on BookTube, because if anyone loves a recap, if anyone loves stats, it's this girl right here. I think that for this video, I am going to just check in with you with my goals. We're gonna look over them, talk about them, and then I'm going to take you fully through the year, just month by month, all of the highs, the lows, the lessons learned, the wins, the losses, and the life plot twists. So let's get started and go over the goals. In 2024, I made myself 3 writing goals and then 2 kind of funsy goals that weren't really goals, but they were like things I would like to do if I had time. And goal number 1 was to get Project Pyro submission ready. Yeah, that was the goal. Project Pyro is my YA thriller that's always kind of just been on the back burner since I wrote it in 2021 because I have other contracted responsibilities. And it's kind of sad because I'm just like, you know, I was so passionate for it back in the day and I've always had to put it aside, and now I'm just like, but when is baby girl gonna be like my main queen? She's been a side chick for too long. But it didn't happen this year, and that's because I had to work on Better Bones. I was going to give the whole year basically to Project Pyro, and then my agent was like, slow down. You have a better chance of selling a middle grade since you already have like your name in that industry and you have a good relationship with Scholastic and you have that option clause that they want to see your next middle grade, so like why not go for the sure sale and work on that next? And I was like, you know, that's really smart. So that's what I did. But it is sad because it means that I automatically like failed this goal. Like starting in whenever I started, probably January, I was like automatic fail of that goal. My next goal was to get Bitter Bones ready for feedback, and I 100% did that. For those of you that might be new here, Bitter Bones is my middle grade horror book that I have coming out at the end of this year, now that it's 2025. So wild. My Scholastic Press. So hey. It's funny because when I was writing these goals, I don't even think that Bitter Bones had been announced yet. No, because it didn't get announced until last summer. So I was like, oh, get feedback on Bitter Bones, knowing that I meant turn it into my editor basically. And then my last goal was to do more school visits or / plan a school tour. I mean, I'm gonna say that I achieved this goal solely for the purpose that in making this goal, I made it out of my control, right? I can't force a school to hire me, but I did plan a school tour. I did everything within my control. I cold called, I made a program, I reached out to as many people as possible, and like, just because I don't know, I didn't get any more visits this year than I did the year before, which was the goal, but I couldn't do anything about that, like, you know. So that was kind of like a faulty goal to make. Anyway, I have a way that I'm gonna be revising it for my 2025 goals, so you know, stay tuned. And then the 2 funsy goals. My first one was to turn When the Sea Came for Us into a romantasy. That was my first book that I tried to query. It died in the trenches, and it's a disabled girl, a mermaid book, kind of like a dark fantasy, and it's really fun, and it has a very angsty slow burn romance. It low-key it low-key has the same plot as Fourth Wing, which that might be exciting for you or that might be a huge turn off. Take it how you will. But I was like, yeah, this is like the same thing, like a disabled girl, and she's basically forced into conscription, and she like becomes magical through this whole thing, and she's got like her animal companion, and she's like forced to train, and she falls in love with the brooding guy with secrets. It was a fun idea. It is still a fun idea, but when am I gonna have time for that? And then my last funsy goal was to do a NaNoWriMo with my gothic horror. This is my YA like Crimson Peak, but like make it gay. I might actually make it adult too. I don't know what I'm doing with this one. I really wanted to write it this year. I've written a little bit of it before in the past when I went to England and I stayed at like a really fancy manor house. I wrote by the fireplace there and it was very aesthetically pleasing, but I have not written in it since, and I wanted to do the whole thing. Obviously that didn't happen, mainly because Bitter Bones. I mean, I was so busy doing that, but also, I mean, Nano's kind of a mess right now. So next I had 6 reading goals. The first one was to read 5 graphic novels because I wanted to decide really if I liked that medium for storytelling, because I didn't think I did. And then I read the 5, so I did achieve this goal, and I found quite a few that I really liked. I found that I am very picky with it. I will DNF a graphic novel so fast, like it's nobody's business, but when I find one I really like it. Like all of them that I finished, well, all of them except one were 4 or 5 stars, which is incredible. My next goal was to read or delete all books on my Goodreads 2021 TBR. I like to keep my Goodreads very neat and orderly, so if a book has been on there, it's saying that I want to read it for more than 3 years, I'm like, okay, on that 3rd year, we're reading it, or we're trying it and deleting it. That's the goal. Every year I do this. I'm doing it again this year. And yes, I was able to get all of those books off. And then we have read or unhaul all physical TBR books from 2023. Like how I like to keep my Goodreads nice and tidy, I also like to keep my home TBR nice and tidy. I don't bring in a lot of books. In fact, most of the time, the books that come into my home are books that I've already read and gotten from the library and asked for Christmas or birthdays. But I do still get books throughout the year. So I like to keep that number under 25. In fact, that's my hard goal. I will not bring another book into the house if I already have 25 TBR books. They can stay 1 year in this house and then they gotta go. This is the first year I did not complete that goal. I got so close though. You guys, like I kind of let it go throughout the year. I was doing a lot of mood reading, so I wasn't picking up the physical TBR. But towards the end, I realized, oh, I have like 4 really big fantasy books that I need to get to. And so I rushed. I incremented time every night to do it, and I'm so very proud of myself. The last book I had to read is, I'm still currently reading this book, and we're on the 8th of January when I'm filming this, is S by J.J. Abrams. This is the dude who directs Star Wars and stuff. He has this like meta complex book. It's like a story within a story situation, and it's kind of like House of Leaves, if you're familiar with that situation, where it's like you're not just reading a book, it's actually like a puzzle, like an experience itself. I had 2 days left of the year, and I don't know why I thought I would be able to do this book, because you can't. You read the story, and then you read the footnotes on the same page, and then you read these notes that people are leaving to each other within the book itself. And then there are outside medias that you can search and look for clues and puzzles that you can figure out. So it's like, I've read 100 pages of this book, but it feels like the equivalent of reading 500 pages so far, because there's so much work to be done within it. It is the only book that I didn't get to though. And you know what? Whatever, it is what it is. I have made plans to achieve this goal much more efficiently this year. My next goal was to complete Buzzwordathon. This is a year-long readathon that is hosted by Books and Lala on BookTube, and every month you just have a buzzword that you need to find in the title of your book that fits that prompt, and you have 12 of them, one for each month. And it's like just a really chill readathon, but I always find it like helps spice up my reading, and it's really fun. I did achieve this goal with a caveat that this year I decided to only pick books that are already on my Goodreads TBR. I'm only reading books that I'm already interested in, because that's what I want to do. I want to get the Goodreads TBR down, right? And just picking a random book that I'm not even interested in just so it fits a prompt is not helpful to me, and like defeats the purpose for me. Like, I am more interested in reading down my TBR than winning a Buzzwordathon. There was one I was not able to complete. I'm trying to think of which one it was. There was a prompt and the word was only, and I didn't have any books on my TBR all year. Like, even ones that came in as the year went on that had that word in the title. That kind of sucked, but what can you do? I completed all of their 11 months. My next goal was to have a personal readathon that I was calling Genreathon, where I get one column or genre from my Goodreads TBR down by half. All of my books that I have in Goodreads, I also have in a spreadsheet, and I separate them out by age category and genre. So if I'm in the mood for a middle grade fantasy, I have a whole list of ones available. The only problem is there are some genres that I repeatedly get excited by, like excited by new releases, but I'm never necessarily in the mood to read those genres. So like YA fantasy is always massive for me. I get so excited by all of the premises, but then I never actually am in the mood to pick up a YA fantasy. So the list of those is like massive, which is why I decided to make this little like solo readathon for myself. And I did that. I ended up choosing 3 different genres. That way I didn't get burnt out on like, you know, one type of story. What did I do? I did YA fantasy, and then I did adult thriller mysteries. The goal was to get each of those categories down by half. I did that for one of them. The adult thriller I got down by half, and then the YA and the middle grade I both got down by a quarter. So overall I consider that a win, because it was like 20 books off of my TBR. You know what I mean? Which is pretty good. Granted, a lot of them were DNFs, but I mean, a DNF is just as exciting as a completed book when you're just trying to clean off that TBR, you know what I mean? And then my last goal I decided not to do anymore. I was probably around March when I was like, I don't want to do this goal anymore, but it was rereading, and there were specific books that I wanted to reread this year. And I just decided that with rereading, I want it to be something fun. I want it to be like a self-care thing, and I don't want to put a goal around a reread. So even though all of these books I have on here are ones that I'm excited for, when I get around to it, I'll get around to it. And if I don't, I don't. And then with life goals, I only had 2. My first one was that that I wanted to see visible upper body growth because I have been weightlifting and I considered this a success. I definitely kept weightlifting and I have continued to do it throughout the entire year. I'm not gonna lie. In August when I broke my wrist, it kind of threw my game off. I don't think I've been weightlifting regularly since. It's more like every 2 weeks and not like twice a week like I was doing. Overall, the idea was just to get into it, you know, like because it's something I really love. It makes me feel better physically. I feel stronger. I have much less neck problems. Like my arthritis doesn't act up as much. It helps with the nerve pain. Like I just love what it's doing to my body. And I also just love flexing. I love flexing because like when I flex now, I have like an indent where you can see the muscle and like a little tiny baby mound. She's so cute. Oh, my other goal I also got rid of. So I wanted to make an England trip photo album. I just didn't do that, but I kind of lost interest in doing that, to be honest. So in total, out of the 9 goals that I had, I achieved 7 of them. Not too shabby. Not too shabby. For me, it's a little shabby because I usually achieve all of my goals. It is what it is. Now I want to do an actual recap of the year. So let's go back in time, way back in January 2024. In January, little baby Bitter Bones was tiny and an infant in draft 1 stage. It was a slow start, but I cradled little baby Bitter Bones and I nurtured him. And then in February, I started working on my school presentation, again, to fulfill that goal there that I wanted to do more than I did the year before. I'm really proud of my presentation. It's really fun. It's called Persevering Through Publishing, and I'm still available. I'm still booking if you're interested. On my website, there's a contact page, and then there's a little section where you can fill out a form if you're interested in hosting me. I do virtual, so plug. If you're a teacher or librarian, hit me up. And then we got into March. First of all, a really cool highlight is that I got my first paid sponsorship, which was really awesome. Loved that for me. I also did that solo readathon, that genre-thon. This was the month I did it in, and it really helped clean off my TBR so much. A huge like brain chemistry altering thing that me and my critique partner did was this exercise where we were really stuck with our projects, where we wanted to start them. And so we did this exercise where we both came up with 5 different beginnings for our books, and we would send them all to each other, and then we left feedback. And it turned out that none of the first ideas we both came up with weren't the best ones. It was just really interesting to push myself creatively in that way, to really step outside of the box. And it helped me so much because I was just finding, we both found that, you know, going with your first idea isn't always the most creative and it isn't always the best one for the story. Sometimes you really have to try different avenues and see how it works. That was so helpful for me to have that discovery and just have that exercise. Now I do that all the time. Like with every step in my outline when I first start a book, I'm just like, can I take this idea and actually make it any more interesting? Can I set it in a place that would make it cooler? Could I add a conflict in it that would make it more tense? And I'm always playing with different avenues of my books now, and I think it's helping me come up with much more engaging plots and ideas and book starters, and like it was incredible. So I'm so happy that we did that because it changed the way I write. This was also the month that I discovered D&D, which is so funny because before this I actually have it in a vlog where I'm talking about it and I'm like, oh, I want to learn how to play D&D. It's like a board game, right? I had no idea that it was truly just like collaborative storytelling, gamified. And that was everything I love. I love games with friends and I love storytelling. So these epic long campaigns that you play with your friends, where you just tell stories and do character arcs, it's everything. It's kind of everything. I actually have a Wallis. Wallis, if you're watching this, thank you. I have her to thank for this because I was like, where do I get started with D&D? Like, I think this is such a cool concept and I want to learn more about it. And she was like, you need to watch Critical Role Campaign 2. So Wallis, thank you so much for introducing me to the Mighty Nine. Critical Role Campaign 2 is something that I started in March and I got obsessed with. It's just like 7 misfit weirdos who accidentally become heroes. And I think the campaign lasts over 3 years, like 3 years of our life gameplay wise. And it's just amazing. I mean, the storytelling, the detailing is just incredible. It's really changed the way that I think about stories. I mean, there's like character developments and plot twists and romance and laughs and like heartache and tragedy. And it's just like, this is a game. Like, I'm watching people play a game, but I'm emotionally reacting to this the way that I would with like, as if this was like a 70 book series, you know what I mean? It just was so incredible. I truly can't believe how just a dumb little board game changed the trajectory of my year. This is also when I got the idea for Grandmother's Guide to High Stakes Adventuring, which is my D&D based cozy fantasy satire that I'm currently writing the first draft of, and I'm having so much fun with it. It was the exact thing that I needed, because March is also when I started feeling some extreme bitter bones fatigue. I was kind of in a negative headspace about publishing at the time. I have a video link below where I kind of talk about my woes, my sales, my numbers with the Glass Witch and the odds and things like that, and how that was affecting how I think publishers were looking at bitter bones and how rough that was. I guess I was feeling a little disillusioned, and then on top of that, just like slogging through a third draft for me, which is my prose draft, which is always my longest draft. And then on top of that, being completely obsessed with another story idea was difficult. Thus created the bitter bones malaise of 2024. In May, I tried to pull myself out of the funk, and I was like, screw it, I'm gonna write the D&D fantasy. I have the idea, I'm just gonna do it. And then I continued working all spring, all summer. In July, we moved into this new place, which is just a couple doors down from where we used to live before. Our apartment complex was renovating, and so we had to dip over a couple apartments, which was a whole thing. Super upset about it. We lived in our old place for like 12 years, and I was like, are you kidding me? We have to move 3 doors down. I also broke my arm, which kind of was a wrench in the plans for a little bit. Luckily, I was still able to type though, so it didn't throw me off my deadline too bad. In July, I published my most viewed video of all time. It was one of my publishing trends videos, which are so fun. If you haven't checked those out, I highly recommend it. I talk about the trends in publishings to help you write your books, get marketable ideas, and just kind of like keep track of what's going on in traditional publishing. Also in July, I got to announce Bitter Bones. You guys were finally able to know that I sold it, which was really exciting. In fact, I sold it in September of last year, but I had to keep it quiet for so long because like I was just in the contract trenches. I'm still pumped for this book. I mean, I'm talking about like how I was so unmotivated at the time, but I got back into it real soon, and now it's just like pure excitement about this story. Once it starts looking good, once it starts looking and feeling like an actual book, then I get excited. But when it's still like a pile of poop. And then August hit, and in August I realized that, oh my gosh, Bitter Bones is due the end of next month, and I am still so unmotivated. I freaked out and kicked myself into overdrive. And really, nothing can motivate a Capricorn rising like an impending deadline, so like I just like flew through it. In September, I finished the third draft. I got it to my betas, my CPs, my agent, and my editor, and I finally got to breathe. I finally got to breathe for a hot second. I think it took 2 weeks just to work on Grandmother's Guide and just have fun, relax, read, do all of the little cozy hobbies I wanted to do. This is also where I first discovered like cozy bold line art coloring. Like I loved it so much. It took over my cozy hobbies of any sort. Like I loved it so much. It's just so relaxing, and it's so fun, and it's a great way to be creative without having to work on a book. Like it really is refreshing because it's like not something I have to monetize or worry about how others feel about it or anything like that. In fact, plug, I have a coloring Instagram now if you want to like follow my coloring, my art. I just have so much fun with it, and I love challenging myself to learn new things with it, like new shading techniques, new texture techniques, and I don't know, it's a creative challenge that isn't high stakes, and I feel like I needed that this year. And then in October, my editor got back to me with feedback, and she and everyone else pretty much agreed that there was a little bit of pacing problems in the middle of Bitter Bones, and my editor was like, this is just too long. We're gonna have a hard time marketing this to schools and libraries with a 68,000 word middle grade. Like if we can get it closer to 50, that would be great. And I was like, oh my God, that's so much cutting. But I got to work on it anyways. In November, I went on a writing retreat, and I was still working on my trimming while I was doing that and restructuring Bitter Bones. If you want to check that out, I'll link that down below too, because I completely like had to pull apart my mystery and all my subplots and my red herrings and all that stuff and trim and then try to put it all back together, which was the hardest revision I had ever done, but I ended up being so proud of myself, and you can watch that in that video. November was also the month that I learned how to crochet, which is super cool. It was like a skill that I had been wanting to learn for a while. I learned how to make some derpy chickens, and I made so many of them, and I've really had just like a fun time making things for all my friends. And in December, on the 20th, I turned in the fresh new draft of Bitter Bones, who is down at 49,000 words, from 68,000 to 49,000. I turned him in, and I finally got to breathe. December was also the month that I finished watching campaign 2 of Critical Role. 141 episodes, guys, on average 4 hours long. I started it in March, I finished it in December. It's like one of the biggest accomplishments of this year. I figured out the average amount of time that like an audiobook is for me. The average audiobook that I read is 10 hours. If I figured out how much time I spent watching Critical Role and translated it into audiobooks, it's the equivalent of listening to 56 audiobooks. I listened to the equivalent of 56 audiobooks in Critical Role hours. Like, what? What? I'm also just like, oh my gosh, if I hadn't watched Critical Role, I could have read like 60 other books, which is just wild, but totally worth it. It was a story. It was an audiobook, you know what I mean? A 56 book series audiobook. And then at the end of December, I got to take the last 2 weeks off completely of everything, including YouTube, so I could just like refresh, do my cozy hobbies, and not have to worry about anything. And then some overall stats and just little highlights for you. I had a total of 247 pain-free days this year, which was absolutely incredible. That is massive for me. That is my biggest to date since I started pain tracking in like 2020, I think. That is 67% of my year I was pain-free. Like, who? What? I am able-bodied, hello. For reference, in 2020, the first year I started tracking this, I only had 33% of my life pain-free. So I'll take 67 any day. I colored a total of 52 coloring pages. I love that so much. I also was so much more social than normal. I don't know what exactly got into me, but I made 2 new friends in real life. Like, I haven't made friends in real life probably since I was in like middle school. Yeah, I made 2 friends in real life and like I actually hang out with them. And like we do things. I went on 2 different writing retreats. Everyone, you know, everyone that was at the writing retreats are people I met from the internet. Some of these folks, it was the first time I had met them in person, so that was incredible. And others I had seen before, and we just got to get so much closer, and that's a magic in and of its own. This year I read a total of 116 books, which is so amazing. It is much less than last year. Last year I read 158. However, because I was focusing so much on DNFing books that I wasn't seeing myself liking, I only had 2 2-star reads this whole year. In fact, it's completely plummeted, my 2-star, and I don't even get 1-star ratings anymore. And I just think that's incredible. And my overall rating for the year was a 3.8. I also noticed because my health was better, I think that's because I've now had a regular workout schedule for years, and I've had a regular like trying to get 3 to 5 veggies in a day for years. On top of the weightlifting, I have a lot better like spinal health, which is like my normal thing that I have a problem with. The disability stuff is like neck up, you know what I mean? Being able to physically read again was a huge thing this year. I was able to, I think I physically read 22 books this year, which is wild. And then of course I got a Kindle, so I was digitally reading too. I love all forms of reading, but there's just a certain magic in holding a book and like turning the pages. And kind of like, you know, hunching over with bad posture and just like devouring it. That just feels so nostalgic and full of like this like childlike joy that I had been missing from my life for years, because of spinal stuff. I wasn't able to use the muscles and the nerves to hold up a book. Yeah, that was huge this year. I also read more adult books than ever before. YA and middle grade are both kind of dwindling off a bit, but YA more so than middle grade. My rating scale is kind of weird and like a little bit severe, but I consider a book I like to be a 4-star book. I do quarter ratings too because I'm just that pedantic, but 4-star means I like a book. And when I did all my stats for the end of the year, I found out that 44% of the books that I had completed were books that I had rated 4-star or above or liked. And to me, I feel like that number is just a little bit too low, which tells me that I could be even more severe with my DNFing books, that I'm just like, this is okay. But if I'm not going to give it a 4-star, like, is there a point in finishing it? Just finishing a book to finish a book doesn't really align. Doesn't really align with my aura. So yeah, we're going to be more stringent with DNFs. Also, these are my top 10 favorite books. I love them all for so different reasons. They're all my babies and in weird ways, and if you haven't read any of them, I mean, I guess pick them up. So that was my year. I mean, every year I always say it was a great year, you know what I mean? Like there were bad things that happened. I was in a pretty bad publishing mindset. I broke my arm, you know. Had to move. Things happen. But with my mindset, I'm always just like, bad things happen in a day. It doesn't make the whole day bad. It's just a bad incident that happened in a good day. You know what I mean? So like, that's how I like to view the year. Overall, you know, it was one of those years where I was just grinding. Like I was just working on Bitter Bones. I don't have a ton to show for it. I didn't have a book come out this year. I wish I did. I wish I was that author who could have a book come out every year, but that doesn't work with my body and my lifestyle and I guess my creativity. But it was a great year for learning and for, oh my gosh, for health. And like when your health is good, everything else is just euphoric. Like I broke my arm and I was like, this isn't even that bad. And it's like, you know, bones or no, it wasn't that bad. You know, it's just like when you're not in constant pain, the joy that you can experience just like goes so much higher up. So that was my 2024. I know everyone is already into 25 and yeah, we'll be well into January by the time you guys see this. But I hope you guys are hanging in there. I hope you're having a good year. And if you're not having a good year, I hope that you're trying to find the positive in little things. If you're not getting joy, hopefully you're getting strength, you're getting courage, you're getting motivation, whatever you need. Thank you for spending another year on this little tiny cozy corner. At least I hope it's cozy, of the internet, hanging out with me. I can't believe y'all like to listen to me talk and like my books. Like that's so weird to me. Like I mean I'm so grateful, but it's wild that one day I just picked up this camera and then all of a sudden I made friends. Like I truly appreciate every single one of you and I read every single comment. I try to respond to every single comment. I would love to know how your year went. I would love to know one amazing thing that happened to you this year. Is there a goal that you're so proud of yourself for achieving? Is there a book that just like sent you to the astral realm? You loved it so much. If you published a book this year, tell me. If you finished a draft this year, tell me. If you wrote a chapter, if you wrote a line, if you wrote a word, tell me. I will be having a goals video, what's coming up in 2025, coming up sometime soon. But for now, I shall leave you. And thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye.